Can you tell us a little bit about the ideas and themes that you wanted to explore in your piece?
Sure. So it definitely was a journey. I started out wanting to do a piece about body image, and particularly within the LGBTQ community, really thinking about, kind of how there's a lot of focus on muscles and looking good and a lot of fat phobia. That's kind of where I wanted to go at first, but as I went and looked through all the amazing pieces, the idea completely changed. And so I wanted to then think about what it's like to go into a space and to want to see pieces that fully represent your whole self. And so that's kind of where I landed. I wanted to do something that was more about representation, period, and less about, body image per se.
Can you talk about how Richmond Barte's Feral Benga sculpture inspired you and how you responded to it?
I was really inspired by the fact that it had a close proximity. I was inspired by the Harlem Renaissance. I'm really drawn to that time period because it's about a vibrant community that celebrates blackness and creativity and music and all these creative influences. And so as I read about the Harlem Renaissance really being integral to the artist's work, that really drew me to the piece.
And you make beautiful use of the full-scale work eruptions on the wall, and there's even an echo in the costume of some of the footprints. Talk about why you selected eruptions and how it spoke to you.
So that particular installation is just overwhelmingly inspiring. I think once I saw it, I just knew that it was because I knew that the piece was about identity. I knew that it was about journey and really, really a personal journey. And so just the footprints make sense when you think about a journey. And so I kind of took a deep dive and said, okay, I want my feet to be in the piece, and especially because I'm not performing the piece. I'm creating the piece for someone else to perform. How can I be a part of the piece? And one way was for my footprints to personally be on the costume. And so really those footprints really drew me into the journey aspect of the piece. And then it just took over, and the whole piece is about journeying through a place to really find your whole self or see your whole self in a space.
And can you talk about why you selected Cara Walker's The Massacre of the Innocents?
Cara Walker is one of my favorite artists, period. I just think the imagery is so comical, and the way she can take tragedy but make it kind of cartoonish in a way, I just think is brilliant. And so that I thought was gonna be the main piece that I was gonna, until I saw the footprints. I thought that was going to be the main piece. Plus, it's black and white, which is a great canvas to dance in front of or perform in front of. But really, I'm just really drawn to the way that it's kind of comical for something that's a tragedy or something that's really dark, and it's kind of light in a way. And so I think that kind of sarcasm I was really drawn to.
And there's Frank Stella's magnificent tableau that you use so effectively. How did you incorporate that if this is a work about a journey?
Yeah, that's the piece with all of the vibrant colors, and it just reminded me, of course, of a rainbow. And with Pride Month, you think about the LGBT community and that symbolism, and so you just can't get away from it. And so although it is not the exact hues of that, just the vibrancy and the color, it reminds me of a rainbow. So in the piece, when you find yourself, or when I find myself, I thought that was a great way to represent the LGBTQ part of my identity.
And this is a video made especially for Pride Month. Can you talk a little bit about your journey coming out as a gay man and coming out as a gay artist?
I had the luxury of having a family that was incredibly supportive. So my coming out story is very celebratory. My family they were excited that I was able to come out to them and share a part of me that was so intimate. And so I have just a really loving family, and I had all the support. They let me be, my full self from as far back as I can remember. I could play with whatever I want to play with, even if it was something that was for girls. I've been able to dress the way I want to dress, so I've been wearing girl clothes for a very long time. So I was able to really be myself at home. And so coming out was not really difficult for me. Coming out to the world is a little different because you don't have that relationship with the world, right? And so it took a very long time for me to incorporate that part of my identity in my work. The first time I created LGBTQ specific work was really recent, like maybe 3 years ago. So I'd already been choreographing for years, a decade, before I even felt comfortable sharing that part of me with my audience. And so it's very interesting how comfortable I was coming out to my family and how that was not the same story for my audience.
So with Urban Souls, you've not been afraid to tackle issues that some people find controversial and provocative. Can you talk about why it's important for you as an artist to have people look at your work and be challenged, and your thought process around that?
What I really like about art is that you're able to challenge people, but it's still on their timing, right? So if you see a piece that makes you uncomfortable or rubs you the wrong way, you can address it later. You can think about it later, or you can not think about it at all. It's a little different than a conversation. So if I'm forcing a conversation with you, we need that back and forth right now. But with art, it allows you to still be in control over what you do with your emotions and what you do with that reaction. So I think it's the perfect way to take in challenging concepts and ideas.
So you studied as a young dancer with a great gay artist, Alvin Ailey, with his dance company, and learned his technique. Can you talk about if he influenced you and how, and who are other choreographers who've had an influence on the way you work?
Oh, absolutely. So going to the Ailey School was like when dance felt like home for me. It was like, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think it was the perfect combination of really my whole identity, like understanding that Alvin Ailey was also a black gay man who was from Texas and who grew up in the church. I mean, we have so many similarities in our life. That I just felt like it was the right fit for me. He certainly has influenced a lot of my choreography. I think that he really thinks about how do you humanize dance and how do you make it about people, and I've done that same thing. And so I was really inspired by the way that he infuses people into his work. Another choreographer that I love is Ulysses Dove, who is also a black gay man and who is closely related to the Alvin Ailey Company, but just his style of movement, he knows how to make the body really sing. It's like an instrument. And so in watching some of his works, I really started to take on athleticism as a part of my style. And so I think stylistic, I'm more drawn to Ulysses Dove as an inspiration, but in terms of how I see people in dance came from from learning at the Ailey School.
And can you talk about the music for the piece and why you wanted to use that music and how it influenced you?
So this is another good example of really giving equity of voice. So there's a black gay violinist. His name is Ricky Etheridge, and so we've collaborated on a few pieces, and I just thought he was perfect for this topic. And so really I just explained to him that the piece was about the journey and whole self and identity, and I said, I'm really inspired by these footprints, and that's all I gave him. And I said, you can make whatever you want to make. I'm not going to give you any. He's like, what about mood? I said, whatever you want to make, that's what I want to do, because I really wanted him just to create something of his own, like a piece of music that he just really thought was his true identity. And so that's how we got the music. And I thought he did a really great job, and it sounds like walking to me. It really matches footprints. And so I think he did a really good job of really making that about a journey.
Anything we haven't talked about that's important to your work or important to your evolution as an artist or a gay man that you would want an audience to know?
No, I think the piece also really, it really wrestles with this duality of being both gay and black, and how sometimes you have to choose which one is the right one for the room. And so that's a journey that I've been taking for a long time. Typically within the LGBTQ space, we're really behind on racism. And so you really have to kind of diminish that part of yourself so that you can be perceived as a blank canvas, as someone who is not intimidating at all. And the flip side of that is within the black community, we have a lot of work to do with homophobia. And so you don't really, you're not really loud about who you are as a person who might be LGBTQ. And so as you go through those two communities, you're always trying to figure out how much of myself can I bring to the table. And so it's just really recent, that I've really felt at that intersection of being both black and gay, that I'm comfortable in both of those spaces, bringing my whole self to the table. And so that duality is what this piece was really about. The title of the work is These Feet Were Made for Walking, and I chose that title because the journey to becoming my whole out, proud, black gay self has been a hard journey, it's been a long journey, but it's mine. And so I think that it was designed just for me, and I think that I could withstand it. So I titled the piece, These Feet Were Made for Walking.